And then there was 16 out of the final 64 teams in the field of the NCAA tournament. We are down to 16 teams that will begin Thursday and Friday, moving on to the Elite Eight. And of those 16, 7 are from the SEC. Heath and I will do a recap of the first 2 rounds of the tournament, talk a little SEC baseball, and give you our picks for the Sweet 16 matchups. That's all ahead on this edition of the Stingray Show.
Hi, this is Tim Brando with a reminder. Those of you on Tide 100.9, look out. You're about to feel the buzz of Stingray.
This is Stephen Ray, a.k.a. Stingray, coming to you live from Tuscaloosa, Alabama.
I'm Heath Hopkins. I'm here in DeSoto County, Mississippi, right outside of Memphis, Tennessee.
You know, Mark, I'm going to put you on the spot. Do you feel that responsibility to pay it forward and give some kid a chance coming up in the ranks, kind of like Tony did for you?
Why do you think I'm talking to Stingray tonight?
Thank you, man. I appreciate
that.
No,
I mean, look, no.
Hey, Stingray, here's the deal. When you get involved with Texas, it's like getting married to a stripper. and let me explain this. It looks good. It's kind of sexy on the surface. Yeah. But then you get the baggage, you get the drama, you get all that eventually comes with it. And that's what you get with Texas, and that's what the Big 12 learned.
And Heath, any thoughts on our show moving forward?
Hey, to everyone in Tuscaloosa listening here on Tide 100.9, with the Stingray Show, if you don't like it, you better learn to love it, because it's the best show going today, baby. Woo!
And with that, I want to welcome you inside another edition of the Stingray Show. And actually, I do have a guest this evening. And believe it or not, this guy started out on the original SEC network and was the reporter for Mississippi State on CSS, the original SEC network. Please help me welcome to the Stingray Show, Mr. Heath Hopkins. Heath, how are you doing, my friend?
What in the world was that? I have been on this show as much as you. I have been here forever. I am not a guest.
Yes, I know.
Well, with my voice, I could pretend to be somebody else.
Right.
Stephen, I don't know if it's the pollen. I don't know what is going on, but I haven't had a voice in like 3 weeks now. It goes and comes, but yikes, man. Well, speaking of yikes, how's your bracket doing?
I've still got the national champion, but that's about it.
Our Final Four is in contact, but man, oh man. I don't know anyone's bracket that's doing good, though. I don't know a single person whose bracket's doing good.
I will tell you, your voice sounds pretty good right now. It's sounded the best it sounded in a few weeks. So maybe you're on the up and up, my friend.
Well, hot water and salt, a little lemon tea and honey. No, I haven't got Grandpa's cough medicine yet, but that's the next step.
Get you some Jack and Coke, man. You'll be good after that.
Maybe. I don't know. I won't go too far on this, Stephen. Look, I'm not a drinking person. I've never been much of a drinker my entire life. Well, I'll sit down and have a beer with you. Yeah, sure. But I'm not a big drinker, never have been. But I took the family to Disney World years ago, and we spent a day at the pool. They had a Jack and Coke icy machine.
Oh, my gosh.
It was the greatest thing in the world. The absolute greatest thing. I will say this. I was in the Mellow Mushroom out in Germantown, Tennessee, and saw one there. That's the only 2 places I've ever seen one.
Right.
So, go to Disney World, Port Orleans, by the pool, the Jack and Coke icy machine. It will change your life. If you drink too many of them, it'll change your afternoon and evening too, and maybe tomorrow morning.
So Heath, let's go ahead and start with college basketball and the round of 64 and the round of 32 to get us here to the Sweet 16. And last week on Wednesday, it was a week ago, because we have not had a discussion show like this since then. At the end of the show, I specifically said, and I quote, "Let the madness begin." And I got to be honest with you, Heath. Since I said that, it has been March sadness.
Mm.
Where is the madness, man? How many good games do we have? How many buzzer beaters did we have? One. And how many Cinderella stories, such as a mid-majors, do we have in the Sweet 16? Zero. Dude, I'm telling you, the NIL and the
Yep.
transfer portal is killing the mid-major programs, and it is very evident that all of the teams in the Sweet 16 are Power 4 teams.
There's going to be a mid-major that's going to figure out how to catch guys on the way down, guys that go to Power 5 schools that are maybe the sixth man, not getting enough playing time, or, a player that maybe got injured and an underclassman took his job. And there's going to be, maybe it's going to be UNLV. I'd love to see UNLV get hot
Yeah.
again. I think they're looking for a new coach right now, but
They are.
UNLV was so fun back in the 80s and 90s to watch, Jerry Tartanian and those awesome teams. But Tark the Shark, baby. But, one mid-major team is going to figure out how to catch these guys coming down.
Mhm.
And they're going to give them a second chance. And they're going to make a great living of pulling players from Power 5 schools. But you know what? I don't see 2 schools doing it, Stephen.
No.
Right now, 0 schools are doing it.
Yep.
And
And
it's just
and
kind of crazy.
I'll say this too. A lot of people are talking about the travel, no travel on the Queen buzzer beater of Maryland over Colorado State. Now you think about this, Heath. Maryland versus Colorado State, the winner gets Florida. Which matchup is better for TV ratings and TV rights? Is it Colorado State and Florida, or is it Maryland and Florida? So don't tell me that they didn't have a little bit in for the better matchup there, and they pretty much screwed Colorado State of going to the Sweet 16, because if anybody that knows basketball, that was definitely a travel. He took way too many steps going towards the basket.
Yeah, does some of that happen sometimes? Yeah, I believe it's happened before. Do I think it will happen again? Yeah, I think it will happen again.
Yeah.
But other times, I don't think. March Madness has made its money on the Cinderellas, the
Yes.
taking the David over the Goliath. And we love that as America. America loves an underdog story. I mean, that's why they make movies about them.
Mhm.
But who doesn't love Rudy? And no, Rudy was not offsides, by the way. So actually, Rudy probably was offsides, but it doesn't matter. Yeah, but I really look at you can look at that game individually and say that, but
Right.
I don't know. I will say this: I had St. John's losing second round. I did not have St. John's losing to Arkansas.
Yeah.
I had Arkansas going out first round. John Calipari,
Yeah.
Coach Cal, doing it again. Stephen, I don't know if you saw the stat. Calipari is 9-2 against Rick Pitino.
Yeah.
What does that say? That says a
I
lot
know.
to me.
And he's the only double-digit seed left in the tournament is the 10 seed Arkansas, and they face Texas Tech tomorrow night at 9:09 local time. So Arkansas, SEC school, is the lowest seed remaining in the tournament.
Yeah, and here's the fun thing, Stephen. Let's just take that matchup in that bracket. That's the West bracket.
Let's do that in the final segment.
Okay, we can. But I will say this: 9-2. John Calipari is 9-2 against Rick Pitino.
Yeah.
I mean, that's like Nick Saban, Hugh Freeze numbers.
Yeah.
I mean, Hugh Freeze beat Nick Saban twice, but wow.
Yeah. All right. So, guys, when we come back, we are going to continue to dive into college athletics, and then we will get to our national history and national day of today. That's on the other side of the break. You're listening to the Stingray Show. We will be right back. Do you guys dream about owning a home or a condominium down on the beautiful beaches of Alabama, say Orange Beach, Gulf Shores, or maybe even Fairhope? Then let me tell you about First Class Real Estate South Home Group's owner, Celeste Hagler. She has brokers down there in the beautiful beaches of Alabama to help you purchase the home of your dreams and to live where you love in the state of Alabama. You can contact Celeste Hagler at 205-861-5698. Contact Celeste Hagler today to help you live where you love in the state of Alabama. Welcome back inside the Stingray Show. My guest this evening and co-host is Heath Hopkins. I've got to quit saying that before he
that
quits.
guest,
Huh?
roll it up real tight, shine it up, stick it sideways. Yeah,
And stick it.
Guest. Guest messed.
Yeah. All right. So, Heath, let's talk about a bigger situation at hand right now. Can you tell me, since Monday, how many players have jumped into the transfer portal just from college basketball?
Probably almost all of them. I have no idea, but I'm not going to be shocked by whatever number you tell me.
Over 1,200.
Oh, my dear Lord. I am kind of shocked a little bit.
Dude, and there are some that are jumping in the transfer portal with their teams playing in the Sweet 16.
Yeah.
That is the issue of college athletics right now. How in the world are you going to ditch on your team that has an opportunity to go to the Elite Eight? There has got to be something done about this, because now you are causing a depth issue and a potential injury issue for the team that you just left, because you're not getting your playing time.
Well, they have to do it. This is the NCAA is such a joke. A gosh dang flippin' stinking joke.
Yeah.
Just push this back until afterwards. And here's the thing, Stephen. I think we're going to see this one day in our lifetime, and it's probably going to be sooner than later. Like college football, the transfer portal. I think they're going to have to move the season up, and we start in August, maybe, last weekend of July. And so the transfer portal will happen during the school year so they can transfer the next semester.
Yeah.
We've seen that problem this past year with the national championship game. The semester has already started at so many other schools, and there's guys trying to transfer out. And some guys had to leave before the championship game to go. It's crazy that it's set up like that. It's just poor leadership, poor planning. Did I say poor leadership? It is incredibly, terribly poor leadership.
Yeah.
NCAA stands for, as Coach Ron Polk, the winningest coach in SEC history of any sport, stated over and over and over. NCAA stands for nobody cares about athletes. And it's true.
Yeah.
The NCAA does not give a flip about athletes.
No.
Never has. And that's why they have this problem.
And Heath, let me also say this. For a team like Arkansas, the lowest seed remaining, they have had a depth issue all season due to injuries. Well, if you've only got 8 active players that are willing to play in the rotation and you lose 2 of them, that means you've only got 6 players that can play in a 40-minute game. That is an injury problem for Arkansas. I mean, this has got to be fixed.
Wasn't it a couple of years ago that Alabama was at the beginning of the season, was in a game? Some guys fouled out. There's some technical fouls given. Some guys were ejected, and Alabama had to finish playing with like 3 players.
Yes.
Could you imagine a scenario where that happens in the NCAA tournament in the Sweet 16?
I know.
Oh my gosh. What if they won? I mean, there'd be a Disney movie made about them within 18 months, but
Right.
I'm not going to put it. Who's going to
And
play John Calipari in that movie?
everybody got a flagrant 2, and they all had to leave the court and go back to the locker room.
Wow.
I remember that.
Wow. I mean, it's just crazy, man, of how it's just poor leadership by the NCAA. Again, the NCAA stands for nobody cares about athletes. That's what the NCAA stands for. They don't care. They care about catching that check, but they don't care about the athletes.
Now, Heath, let's go back to the round of 64 and the round of 32. Which matchup surprised you the most?
Arkansas by far. I don't want to make this the Arkansas John Calipari show, but I didn't see that one coming, man. I didn't see Arkansas getting out of the first game, much less the first weekend.
Yeah.
And did it shock me? No, because John Calipari is one of the most excellent coaches that's ever walked the face of the earth.
Yes.
He is. Some would argue that he's still the best coach in the SEC. I would say maybe. I'd probably put Bruce Pearl ahead of him, but it's incredible. What do you think, Stephen?
The most shocking game for me, because we were all talking about what a deep run they could make, was Drake over Missouri.
Yeah, I had Missouri in my Sweet 16. I did not believe in Drake.
Missouri came out and looked like they were it looked like they were deer in the headlights against Drake. They could not do anything to get over the hump to take the lead, and they were playing from behind the entire game.
Yeah. It is what it is, Missouri, I thought, could just be a nightmare for people. And here's the secret, Stephen, to the NCAA. And you kind of saw it with the Arkansas matchup. You go in and you're preparing for 2 teams, and you're kind of guessing who's going to win that game opposite of you. And I got a great feeling St. John's did not think Arkansas would be playing them. And they had somebody on staff, probably a GA, that scouted them and had some things, but they weren't completely prepared. And that's the beauty of the NCAA is when these lower seeds advance, and we can see it in the Sweet 16 as well. We've seen it before. Almost every tournament we've seen it before. You prepare for one team, say like a 1 seed. Well, heaven forbid if the 4 or 5 seed beats them, you're not prepared, and you haven't done your film work or your homework or a breakdown of that team. And now you've got just a few hours to get it together and implement it with your team, and you probably don't have much floor time to practice. So it's incredibly difficult. But hey, it is what it is. That's why they call it madness. That's what we're doing. It's March Madness.
And Heath, let me also get to a big debate that a lot of people are not going to like, or they're going to agree with me 100%. The following teams got into the NCAA tournament: Georgia, Vanderbilt, Oklahoma, and Texas. Listen to these teams' conference records. Georgia, 8-10. Vanderbilt, 8-10. Oklahoma, 6-12. And Texas, 6-12. In my personal opinion, if you have a losing record in your conference, you do not deserve to get into the NCAA tournament, especially if you are 6-12 in the conference. What are we doing, SEC? That is a joke. And Texas, Oklahoma, and Georgia embarrassed the SEC by their performances, and especially Georgia getting blasted out of the gate 27-3 to Gonzaga. Give me a break.
Well, is that the SEC's fault? The selection committee chose them. You know,
You don't tell me Sankey had a hand in that. Give me a break.
I don't. The SEC was the best conference in college basketball this year, and there were so many deserving teams. And down the stretch of the season, the last 5 weeks or so of the season, when teams like Georgia, A&M, Texas, Oklahoma, when they had to win games, they won games. And they were like, hey, if they lose either game this week, they're out. And they would win both. And they would make it. And they're like, hey, they really need to finish with, 3 wins to end the season to have an opportunity. And they did. And so they got in. Look, I've said it before. I said it on the show last week. 63 teams are going home sad, Stephen. 63 teams are going home sad. There's only one that's going home happy.
Yeah.
But I'm not so upset about the showing in the SEC. I did not think all 14 would advance or win.
Right.
I didn't think half of them would, and they did. They had 8 teams, more than half. So it is what it is.
So for all of you Alabama basketball fans, I've actually got a surprise for you on the other side of this break. You're listening to the Stingray Show. We will be right back with the special surprise I have for Alabama basketball fans. This next segment of the Stingray Show is brought to you by our official show sponsor. Hey West Alabama, bet you didn't know this. If you're craving some mouth-watering seafood, South's Finest Meats right here in Tuscaloosa offers crab legs, crab claws, red shrimp, raw shrimp, tilapia fillets, catfish strips, and catfish fillets. They also have hamburger patties made daily, as well as chuck roasts, ribeye steaks, New York strips, pork chops, and as well as chicken leg quarters. You can find all of this deliciousness and a whole lot more at 3201 10th Avenue right there in Tuscaloosa. Go by South's Finest Meats and be treated like an MVP. Welcome back inside the Stingray Show. Hope all is well with you. And I actually do have a special guest for everyone this evening. I am about to bring on a former player from the University of Alabama who also coached at the University of Alabama and took Alabama very deep in the tournament, both as a player and as a coach. Ladies and gentlemen, please help me welcome back to the Stingray Show, former Alabama player and coach, Mark Gottfried. Coach, how are things with you in California?
Oh, they couldn't be better. I'm doing very well. Thank you for having me on. This is fun.
Yes, sir. So you were a part of 3 different teams when you were playing that went to the Sweet 16. Talk with us as a player what that experience is like, because Alabama has that opportunity tomorrow.
It's a great feeling because, you have those first 2 games and the good news is you get to come home. Now, Alabama stayed up there this time, but we were able to come home and kind of get regrouped. And then those days, that Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday before the Sweet 16 games, depending upon when you traveled, you're so excited, you're ready. And, you're anxious because, a lot of times in the first 2 rounds, especially if you're a high seed, the games are good. They're great games, but you do feel like you have the upper hand. I think once you get to the Sweet 16, the 16 teams that are left, everybody is good enough and every team is capable of, getting to the Final Four. So in my view, this is where the fun really starts right now. Sweet 16 time, different level than it was last weekend. And you got to really be ready to play well.
So, Coach, talk about it from a coaching perspective. How, if you were coaching, how would you be handling everything going into the game tomorrow?
Well, I think Nate and the staff at Alabama, they've done a great job. And, what you really want your players to do, it's the old Jim Valvano line, is survive and advance, because every game stands on its own.
Yeah.
If you look ahead and you start looking to that Elite Eight game or that Final Four, you might get stung on that one, that first game. So you got to make sure your players are locked in to that one game. And what you have is you have your staff, they're already preparing, a scouting report and all that for the next game, if you're lucky enough to get to the next game. So because that turnaround, is you have one day in between.
Yeah.
But your players, they need to concentrate only on this game and make sure they're going to be at their best for this game, or you hop on the plane and you come home.
Yes. So, Coach Godfrey, you played under Wimp Sanderson. Before we dive into this tournament, do you mind giving us one of your favorite Wimp Sanderson stories while you were a player, please?
There's way too many. I could be here for like 7 hours telling you. Coach Sanderson was wonderful to play for. He was very simple, but he got us to play really hard, and we knew it. You weren't going to play hard, you weren't going to play. Period. End of story. And he just did a great job. But it's not really when I played, but I've shared the story that last about 6 or 8 months ago, Jim Farmer, who everybody will remember, we got in a car from Nashville and drove down to Birmingham and spent the day with Coach. And he still, that first minute, he said, I don't think I had y'all ready to play against Providence back then. And I'm thinking, well, that's 30 something years ago, Coach. And trust me, you had us ready. We just played a really hot Providence team with Billy Donovan and that group. But, when you lose a game, and we all still feel it, I feel it, Jim feels it, Coach Sanderson feels it, especially when we were a 2 seed that year. But those things stay with you. They stay with you. It's not like you just kind of let it go and forget. But we had a great time with Coach, just kind of talking about all the fun we had playing for him and all the winning we did and SEC championships we played. I mean, it was amazing. So we had a wonderful time.
So, Coach Godfrey, let's go on ahead and talk about the current tournament, the round of 64 and the round of 32. What was your biggest takeaways from the first weekend?
Well, from Alabama's perspective, I thought when the draw came out, the brackets came out, I thought we were the beneficiaries of a.
Mm-hmm.
I never want to say a lighter path, but when you play Robert Morris and then you play St. Mary's, that's a little bit different than having to play UConn or Oregon or somebody in that second round. Just physically, you have a different physical level player.
Mm-hmm.
So I did like our bracket. Now I think from here forward, now BYU upsets Wisconsin, which was great again for us. So now instead of playing a 3 seed, you're playing a 6 seed, and I think that kind of helps us as well. So
Right.
the tournament, what happens in the tournament, and I think I counted it. I think it's 22 as a player and a coach, NCAA tournaments. A lot of times, it's how the bracket unfolds, and you could just on one hand, it's like when we went to the Elite Eight.
Mm-hmm.
In that year, 2004, we had knocked out the number 1 seed, which was Stanford, but then we had to play UConn, who was a 2 seed, and they won the national championship. But if we had to play anybody other than UConn, that team might have broke through and made a Final Four.
Right.
On the flip side, sometimes it works in your favor. So we had great games this year all the way through. Alabama, I think, has played well. I think Auburn, I tell people this all the time. I mean, obviously people know I love Alabama, but I think their road to the Final Four is hard. They might have the toughest as an overall 1 seed. Duke has stood out to me. Florida has stood out to me. But the team I think people kind of miss a little bit on is Houston. I like them. I think they're really good. So great games to watch so far. The Maryland-Colorado State game right down to the wire was spectacular.
Right.
So, the tournament, I tell people all the time, it's the greatest show on earth, and it will continue to be this weekend and the following.
So, Coach, what do you make about 1,200 players jumping into the transfer portal, even while teams are still preparing for the Sweet 16. How do we fix this whole transfer portal and NIL situation that is the wild, wild west in college athletics?
Well, let me say this first of all. Sometimes, I'm not, I have never been, and I'm not now a fan of some of the people at the NCAA, but I will tell you this: for the NCAA to have the rules set up and the legislation that's passed, and they get this to a point that the portal would be open before the tournament ends, to
Yeah.
me, sometimes you got to say to yourself, who in the absolute world is making these goofy decisions? Like it's some things are easy, and sometimes we make easy things hard. But the fact that Alabama and Auburn and everybody else, their assistant coaches are on the phone right now reaching out to, and you have to, because you don't want to be late to the party. If there's a great player, and you look at Alabama's roster right now, Mark Sears, Grant Nelson, there's a handful of other guys as well.
Yep.
You can't be asleep at the wheel and say, okay, we'll call you in 2 weeks. So you've got to do it. If you're a coach, you've got to get involved. You got to reach out to these guys. And it blows my mind that coaches are having to deal with this. These 16 coaching staffs that are still involved in playing, that they're involved with this. And overall, let me just say this. I think that, again, the NCAA, and people need to understand, there's always a lawsuit looming to them. Yeah. There's lawsuits. They're probably more sued than anybody other than Donald Trump. It's unbelievable how many times people sue the NCAA. But a lot of times their decisions are based on whether they feel that they can win or lose a lawsuit.
Right.
But right now, that the fact that players can get paid is wonderful. But with no contracts, with no, in the NBA or NFL or baseball, there's salary caps.
Yeah.
It's transparent. The whole world knows what your contract is. If you're a player playing for the Los Angeles Lakers and you sign a 3-year, $10 million deal, well, one, you're locked in for 3, and 2, everybody knows what it is.
Right.
And the NCAA, they have got to figure out, the people in charge, how to put some guardrails up and get the NIL out of recruiting. Because it's, as long as it's involved in recruiting, it is pay for play. These guys are pros, professionals. They need to quit clowning around and acting like the student athlete is important to them. It's not.
Right.
And they got to figure out how to do it, because it's not the environment that I don't think anybody wants. Coaches want to see players get paid. They're fine with it. But you look around right now too, and you see all these really good players that are playing at, maybe high mid-major schools, and maybe they're not the elite SEC, Big Ten, ACC, but really, really good players that just leave their program no matter what. They're just out. And I don't like it like that. I think they got to figure out how to fix all this.
So, Coach, we were up against our final break, and when we come back, we are going to dive into the Sweet 16 matchups. That's on the other side of the break. You're listening to the Stingray Show. We will be right back with former Alabama player and head coach Mark Gottfried. For over 100 years, the Bank of Moundville has been a name clients can trust. The Bank of Moundville is more than just a bank. They're your neighbors, your friends, and your community partners. Their unique approach to financial education has always centered around families. They believe that financially strong homes today lay the foundation for a brighter futures for tomorrow's generation. You can call them today at 205-371-2227. Once again, that is 371-2227 to schedule an appointment to build your financial security. The Bank of Moundville is a member FDIC and an equal housing lender. Welcome back inside the Stingray Show. My guest this evening is head coach, former head coach for Alabama and player Mark Gottfried. And coach, let's go on ahead and break down the Sweet 16 matchups, and we will start tomorrow evening at 6:39 p.m. on TBS. You've got the number 1 seeded Florida Gators taking on Maryland in the West region. Break that game down for us, please.
Well, I think when I watch them, I love Florida's guards. I like them a lot. And Florida got my attention when they came into Tuscaloosa, beat Alabama, and then turned around about 7 or 8 days later in the tournament and, scored 102 or 104 or whatever it was on them and beat them by, I think, 22 points. So they got my attention because I think Alabama's really good. But I like Florida. I think that Florida is a team that potentially, I don't know if they're ready just yet to win it all, but I think they're certainly better than Maryland.
Okay, let's move to the 8:30 game tomorrow evening. It is Duke and Arizona in the East region. How do you see Duke, Arizona?
I love Duke's talent. I mean, they've done a great job. John Shire, when you follow Coach K, and Alabama fans are going to experience that a little bit with someone following Nick Saban
Yes.
with Kalen DeMore. But when you follow a guy like Coach K and John's had, I think they've won 27 or more games all 3 of the years he's been there. But Cooper Flagg he's an anomaly. He's just the best player. I mean, hands down to me, he's the best player. But I think around him they're pretty talented as well. So I think Duke is going to win this game pretty handily.
All right, tomorrow evening, the late game at 9 p.m., Arkansas versus Texas Tech. How do you see that one playing out?
You get on a ride like they are at Arkansas and Calipari, you kind of find a way to win too. After they started the year 0-5, I think, in the SEC play.
Yeah.
Believe it or not, I like them in this game. Texas Tech they haven't made believers of me just yet. I think they're good.
Yeah.
But I think that emotional, wave that Arkansas is on, it may carry them. I'm going to pick Arkansas for that one. I think it's going to be a great game. I think it's 2 very evenly kind of matched teams.
Right.
But I like the momentum that Arkansas has, and we'll see if they can pull one more off.
So, Coach, a quick follow-up to that, talking about Calipari, do you ever have any interaction with him that was fun that you could share with us?
Well, he's been a good friend for 25 years, and and when I was at NC State and Debbie Yow made the decision to move on from me, he stepped up, and I always appreciate that. He stepped up publicly, and really swung the bat for me. So Cal is people love him, people hate him. He's all over the board, but he's proven over the years he knows what he's doing, and I think this is maybe one of his best coaching jobs. They lost a great player about a month and a half ago, and kind of got better, but they've somewhat got better. It's unbelievable. So I think the job he's done has been really good.
So, Coach Godfrey, let's talk about the first game of the evening tomorrow night, and it is going to be Alabama and BYU. And going into the game, the first 2 previous matchups that Alabama's had, they had 12 turnovers and 11 turnovers. How concerned are you for Alabama in the turnover game there?
That doesn't bother me as much because of the way that Alabama plays. Alabama is going to play with a lot of possessions, and the more possessions you have, obviously, you're going to turn it over some. That's part of the game. But and BYU likes to run as well. They're not afraid to get up and down the floor. I actually think it's going to be a fun game to watch. Just 2 teams that kind of play similarly, and both of them want to score 100.
Yeah.
I want people to understand this is, in my view, the most athletic BYU team I've seen in a long time. And, you look at the St. Mary's game and just physically, now Randy Bennett does a great job, and they've done a great job in the West Coast Conference, but they didn't have the athletes to me. They didn't have enough athletes that can go get a rebound, that have the quickness and the speed. And I thought that they were just undermatched. this is not the same type of game for Alabama. This is going to be a completely different game from a team that wanted to slow it down to a team that really wants to push it and go, and a team that has some guys on there that can match up with Alabama's athleticism. So
Right.
it's going to be a fun game, I think, for everybody to watch.
And so I'm guessing you've got Alabama facing Duke in the next round in the Elite Eight.
My heart and my head are telling me it's going to be Alabama, but strictly my heart, absolutely.
Gotcha. All right. So let's go to the Friday slate. And we will start on Friday with the shocker of Ole Miss taking on Michigan State. How do you see that one?
Boy, that's a tough one for me to call because I really like Ole Miss's team. I think they've been pretty good all year, and they're playing really well right now. I think, one thing about Michigan State is they don't have that true Cooper Flag type guy that difference maker player. They've got really good players, and Tom Izzo's done a great job. I think Michigan State probably comes out ahead on this one. This is not an overly talented Michigan State team. They just play extremely hard. They play well together. And again, just like I mentioned with Cal, all the success that Tom's had over the year at Michigan State, you got to put this one up there, especially if they win Friday. The one of his better coaching jobs with the roster he has this year. I'm going with Michigan State.
So, Coach, how about this one? In the Sweet 16 to go to the Elite Eight, you've got SEC versus SEC, Kentucky and Tennessee. Break that game down for me, please.
I'll say one thing real quickly about it.
Okay.
Tennessee's guards, to me, those guys, the kid that transferred, I think, from North Florida can really, really shoot it. The point guard, he's little, but boy, does he's the engine that makes that team go. And I think they defend really well. I think they're big and strong inside. They got girth. I think Tennessee wins this one. I think they probably win it handily. I haven't been impressed as yet with Kentucky like I have with the other teams, just watching them from a distance. So it's going to be a great game. And, they border states, Kentucky and Tennessee. I think, for years and years, way back, Tennessee had a little bit of an inferiority complex with Kentucky. But I think right now their program and what Rick Barnes has done, I like their team a lot.
All right, let's go to the number 1 overall seed on Friday evening at 8:30, and that's going to be Auburn taking on Michigan in Atlanta. You know that the Auburn fans are really going to travel to that game. Coach, what kind of a matchup problem can Michigan pose for Auburn?
I don't think Michigan can play with Auburn. I think that Auburn's clearly better. I do think Michigan's a good team. I've said this, and Bruce and I talked right when the bracket came out. I kind of thought, as being the number 1 seed and really the number 1 team in the country, you're the 1 seed of the 1. So there's 4 1 seeds, and you're the first one. I thought his bracket, his road to the Final Four was harder than everybody's. I kind of thought, geez, and so did he, obviously. But I like their team. I like the way that they play. They find a way to win. I just don't think Michigan is there just yet. Not yet. So I like Auburn.
All right, and finally, the last game on the Sweet 16 slate is going to be Purdue and Houston. How do you see that one? Break it down for us, Coach.
This one's going to be a slugfest. This is going to be 2 teams in the back alley that love to play physical, that they don't mind, mixing it up a little bit. What Matt has done at Purdue has been amazing, but I've kind of told a lot of people I would not be surprised. I would not be shocked to see Houston win the national championship. Wow. They're older. Well, most teams are older. They're older. They can score. They can shoot it. They defend. But I love this game. I think it's a boxing match game with 2 tough teams.
Right.
But I really do like Houston. I think Houston's got a chance to, and I think Kelvin has just done a great job. He got out of college coaching for a while, went to the NBA, and he spent 6 or 7 years, I think. But I think it made him better as a coach, and I think that's carried over to his team.
So, Coach, of those 16 teams, who do you ultimately have moving on to the Final Four?
I would love to say Alabama, and I hope they do. I really do. But we'll see. I think Alabama's going to have their hands full if they win and Duke wins to get past Duke. I really like Duke's team. I do think Auburn can get there. I really do. I think they're going to have a tough, game with Michigan and then potentially Michigan State. When I look at a bracket, I kind of look at Houston and Duke. I've always said I think they're the two best teams this year. Auburn's really good, but Houston and Duke, to me, I think are the two that are maybe just a hair above everyone else.
All right. And of those, who do you ultimately have cutting down the nets?
I think it's going to be Houston. I really do. I think the way they defend, I think how tough they are. They've got some experience, a little bit more experience than some of those young guys do at Duke. So I think Kelvin Sampson this year may end up winning his first national championship.
Wouldn't that be something?
Mm-hmm.
So, Coach, look, thank you for taking time out of your schedule to join me. And for all of the Crimson Tide Nation here in Tuscaloosa, the floor is all yours for anything that you would like to say.
I'm excited for this weekend and for Alabama and what Nate has done. This is, the Sweet 16s, the Final Four last year. He's put that program in an amazing position. And, you always hope because, I tell people all the time too, you got to remember, I wore the uniform, I played in the uniform, and then I coached there for 11 years. So, it's in my blood, and I would love more than anything to see them win it all. They got a tough road the rest of the way out, but you never know until you play the games.
So, Coach, as we head out the door, when are you coming back to Tuscaloosa?
I always find a way to sneak in there every now and then. I went to a football game this year, and, they've honored a couple of the teams I coached and one I played on. And so anytime I get a chance to go back and, to be around the program, it's a lot of fun for me.
So, Coach, thank you as always. Enjoy sunny California and also enjoy the Sweet 16 and the rest of the tournament. And I will definitely catch up with you later on.
Thank you so much for having me on. Appreciate it.
Thank you. All right, so guys, that is going to wrap up this edition of the Stingray Show. Really do want to thank Coach Mark Gottfried for joining me right here on the Stingray Show to break down the Sweet 16 and also talk a little bit about his coaching and playing days there at Alabama. When we come back on Monday evening, because we've got Alabama basketball tomorrow night, and then we've also got Alabama baseball on Friday. So the next time we will be on will be Monday evening, and we will be doing a recap of the Sweet 16 and the Elite 8, looking forward to the Final Four matchups of the NCAA Tournament. That's going to do it for us. We will see you back here once again on Monday evening at 7 o'clock.